Here we have the Tascam Porta 02 Mark II. It's quite important that we're saying Porta 02 rather than Porta 2. Porta 2 is a completely different unit, much more complicated, much larger unit, made about 10 years earlier. I'm a little bit late to the party with this model. A lot of the time when I'm uploading videos to my channel, I'm covering units that don't have a lot of content surrounding them on YouTube, whereas this one, there's a bunch of people doing some repairs and modifications and demo recordings on it. Normally I would split review, teardown, demo, tutorial, repair report into separate videos to make it more searchable, but what I'll do this time is start by having a sort of specifications overview, then I will make a basic recording with it. It's not going to be anything too special. I'm going to be throwing a few noise boxes like this little drum machine at it just to show you roughly how to apply overdubbing in this unit and what the sound quality is like. So the units that Tascam brought out with this blue plastic, that's this one, the Porta 02 Mark II, the 44 Mark III, the 414 Mark II. I think they were all brought out roughly the same time. I'm finding that a little bit hard to date. There isn't a copyright date on the manuals, and I don't seem to be able to find any magazine articles that have a date. But I'm guessing it's about 1997 that this came out. The naming of this is kind of a weird one. With these small units, Tascam seem to go backwards with their numbering system, because there's a unit, here's a dusty one, the Porta 03, and you would think, oh, that's a better unit, or it came out later. No, it came out about 10 years earlier. It appears in a catalogue dating to around 1987, so Porta 03 became available at the same time as the Porta 05 and the Porta 07. There's no Porta 02 Mark I that I've ever seen, and I've had a good search for it on the internet a couple of times. I've had hundreds of these things and I've never seen one, so I think they just went straight to Porta 02 Mark II, and maybe the fact that it's got Mark II at the end is to help differentiate it from the Porta TWO2. And then after this, in the early 2000s, they brought out an MFP01. So they're going from P02 down to P01, descending order. Clearly this is aimed at the budget end of the market. It's very small, very lightweight, very few features. Contemporary units that are doing roughly the same thing. Fostex's X12 is pretty similar in its features. I'm not exactly sure what accessories this shipped with. Probably just the power supply unit, and I'll tell you about that straight away because it's potentially damaging to this unit if you use the wrong one. Tascam units that use a wall wart, a little external AC adapter like this, require negative pin 12 volt DC. If you put positive pin 12 volt DC, which is more common, I mean it's what Fostex uses and it's also what a lot of other small electronic devices use, positive tip rather than negative tip. If you put that in there, then there's a few things that will blow. If it's left in there for too long, you'll end up having to replace capacitors and so on. I'm a little bit shaky on what the price would have been. I'm guessing it would have been like £100. I think I've seen £99 quoted, which in 1997 money was, obviously a lot more. I'll put up on the screen exactly how much it was using some sort of inflation calculator. This is a unit that plays back at 1 7/8 inches per second. I mean, that's just standard tape speed. So if I take out this Leonard Cohen tape, which might actually give me a copyright strike, and put in Cold Cuts by the Brothers Nylon and Drome, hopefully they won't sue me. We can hear that's playing back at the correct speed. It's not got any sort of chipmunking sound or any whoa, like the Doom version of Jolene.
Jolene, 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 Jolene.
Do that with this. There's no pitch control built in. Like all of these units, it's two-head design. I'll just put that up so you can see both of them. I've got an erase head here on the left and a record and playback head here on the right. The head is a slightly shallower. Typically they're about that deep, record and playback, Like that's actually the edge of it there. And you can see it's mechanical buttons as opposed to sort of piano touch ones that you get on some of the more upmarket Portastudios. I mean, I tend to think of Portastudios in terms of specifications rather than quality. Occasionally, some of the cheaper ones, I've seen, you know, cheaper op amps and so on, but for the most part, they're using the same components. It's just how many bells and whistles you get. So here we've got mechanical counter. There's no auto stop facility with that. There's no noise reduction, so all the hiss will be there in its glory, love it or hate it. With the mechanical buttons, there's no special facility like you get on some piano touch models where you can automatically punch in and punch out or rehearse at particular points. You can punch in, but what you'd have to do is find a relatively quiet section and hit record and play and be ready with your instrument and start punching in over your mistake and hit stop soon enough that you don't write over later material that still sounds okay. So really bare bones tape player there. The unit has 2 inputs and a guitar input. The guitar input must just be a different impedance. I couldn't get it to sound all that different plugging in a guitar into the mic input versus the guitar input. The way that this works, and I'll just demonstrate this by using my little Fostex model TT15 tone generator. If you go into the leftmost socket, then the signal appears in the leftmost meter. If you go into the right socket, it appears in the rightmost meter. If you go into the guitar socket, it will actually appear in both. So if you try and record 2 tracks at the same time and you're using that guitar input, then it's going to end up being printed to the 2 tracks that you arm using these switches either side. You can see that the numbers here, it's 1 and 3 or 2 and 4 with a safe position in the middle. So I can record with 1 and 2 at the same time, or 1 and 4 at the same time, or 3 and 2 at the same time, or 3 and 4 at the same time. I can't record 1 and 3 at the same time, or 2 and 4 at the same time, and I can't record 2 inputs to the same track. So that's the difference with the Porta 03. With the Porta 03, what you could do is, like, say, put 2 microphones onto like a bass guitar cabinet, like a close one and a distant one, and blend them straight to tape. These sockets are unbalanced. If you put in a TRS tip ring sleeve socket, it will still work, but you won't be getting the benefit of the phase cancelling hoochima flippery from your balance cable. Other sockets here, 1/4 inch jack for headphones, and we've got these RCA outs for the main output. I actually remind myself here, I'm not sure whether that acts as a master volume or not. No, it doesn't. So yeah, this phone's level is just for the headphones, independent of the overall level coming from tape. Level is set via these orange knobs on the left. So here we've got track 1. So with this standard tape, these 2 are going forward and these ones are going backwards. And then each track has a pan control as well. No EQ, no real way to add effects or to add equalization unless you record through an EQ pedal or, like, you know, reverb or delay. You'd have to print those effects to tape as you tracked. A point I would make about these faders is that they are not track faders that you, in the way that you might expect. They're really, it's a sort of an attenuating gain control. You can get some boost by going above this grayed out area between 7 and 8. Because basically this fader is going to have an op amp either side of it. Between 7 and 8 there's a little greyed out area, so that's unity gain. Really your level control coming back from tapes here, and in most situations you're just going to leave it in the middle there. It's easy to use. How easy is it to fix? Yeah, pretty easy. The op amps and stuff in there, it's the same as in Marantz 4 tracks and the bigger, more expensive Tascam 4 tracks. My parts, for the most part, I mean, I haven't had to replace every single thing in here, but if I'd needed to replace the op amps, then that would have been an easy thing to get hold of. It's very simple to get the case open and get all the parts out. I think you're maybe more likely to see some damage on this unit than the ones with the built-in AC transformer, just because people are going to lose the original power supply, put in the one with the wrong polarity, blow some stuff inside. And I think just because it's a cheaper unit, they just get kicked around and mistreated a bit compared to the sort of higher end ones. Loads of these that I get hold of, they've been a bit neglected, they've been stored in a shed or an attic or something like that, so they're subjected to cold or heat. Like this one, even with this shut, I don't know if you can see, but it hasn't shut properly, so the plastic's got a bit warped. That means the door doesn't shut properly. I mean, it doesn't really change the function of the thing. But there were some other electrical problems where contacts were coming away from the printed circuit board. I figure that's probably to do with how it's been stored as well. I do seem to see a lot of these sold without the door's broken off. These still seem to fetch quite a lot on eBay and so on at the time that I'm making this video. I guess people just want a foot on the ladder of having a tape player, and I think Amulets and all sorts of people like this have used these just for tape loop stuff, and I guess people who are wanting to use 4-tracks in that way, they're not so fussed about having effects returns and EQ and different speeds and everything. So if having a small footprint, something very light and portable, is what you need for what you're doing musically, then yeah, it's a pretty good option. If you're more interested in getting into the mixing end of things, then I would say that you're probably going to get more bang for your buck going for, well, at least a 414, but the 424 range, those more fully featured ones. But yeah, pretty good little unit. So as a sort of tutorial demo thing, I'm going to make some music with this Porta 2 Mark II. The person this belongs to, Stephen, hi Stephen, was kind enough to send me this Nano Mini Pops drum machine that he's soldered together from a kit. So thanks for that. I figured since I've got that, I'll try and use some of my tiniest music devices. So I'm going to have drums coming from this little guy. I'll do a bass line on this Korg Monotron, a melody on this Teenage Engineering Factory, and then I'll add some sort of dub siren effects with the Korg Monotron. I've half worked out what I'm doing by a kind of low fidelity 8-bit sounding girl from Eponina maybe, but I'm kind of shrugging this off, so don't judge the artistic merits of it too harshly please. Audio wise, what I'm doing is I've got my smartphone here, it's picking up the sound of my voice, and while I'm tracking, it's going to be picking up some inexpensive Alesis monitors in the room. Once I've finished it, then I'm going to attach this Zoom handy recorder to the line out and make a clean digital recording of what the unit actually sounds like. But until we get to that final stage where I've got a balance and things are panned, bear in mind that you're not hearing the sound of this unit in its full glory. So let's begin with the drum machine. I'd quite like to hear what that sounds like really hitting the tape quite hard, so I'm going to record it really hot. So I want to arm track 1. I suppose under normal circumstances we might want to set the meter like this so it's flashing at 0 occasionally, but because I want to really slam the tape and get some sort of like distortion and compression out of it, I'm going to do that. So here we go. Continuing a tradition where as soon as I try and make any music with any of my gear, part of it breaks. The Monotron output socket, which is a horrible little surface mounted thing, has come away from the printed circuit board altogether. So yeah, change of plan. The show must go on. I've now got the Pocket Operator sub. Input 1 is set to safe. Input 2 is set to 2. I've already set up my gain. I'm going to fade in the bass sound. Just shy of 0 on the meter. Get some finger bass happening down here. Wish me luck. So the little electronic things are down like flies around my bit at the moment. The Pocket Operator Factory, the socket wasn't working on that either. So I've moved over to my Pocket Operator Robot, which is working. I've had to completely rethink what I'm playing. It's not very well rehearsed anyway. Let's see how we get on. I'm going to be recording to track 3, so the 2/4 switch is set to safe, this one's set to 3. I'm back into mic line in 1. Finally, I'm going to add some special effects from the Korg Monotron Delay. Sounds a bit like a blue whale having a really bad acid trip. It's not really a proper musical idea, but I seem to have run out of proper musical ideas. So I've got the 2/4 switch set down the way to 4. The output of the Monotrons going into the rightmost of these two switches. Right, I'll hook up the zoom. I mean, none of these are very high fidelity units. At least it's giving you some sort of impression of the sort of recording we're getting out of there.